they sort of identify themselves with big spending. But part of this problem, we as Republicans have to admit, in these last 8 years, we didn't do very much to bring fiscal responsibility to this city here in Washington.
8 years? No, try 30 years. You know, you didn't bring any fiscal responsibility since Ronald Reagan.
Believe me, the spending has been bipartisan, and one reason for this is neither party will look at foreign policy and the empire that we're operating. We spend it.
Yeah, well, that's wrong too. Okay, there was an effort under Clinton. He reduced the military budget, and certainly Jimmy Carter reduced it. And Ronald Reagan's big running point was they've destroyed our military power. Your friend Ronald Reagan ran on that. That was one of his talking points, is we have to build up our fucking military. What were they building it up for, Ron?
$1 trillion a year maintaining a world empire, and all great nations have been brought to their knees because they won't look at foreign policy. They think they can police the world and maintain an empire. And
yeah, and right. And so how many little wars did Ronald Reagan get us into exactly? I mean, it was Grenada, it was... you know, it's all over the place, the same bullshit games. But again, the huge expenditure. Let's buy a zillion cruise missiles. If you're going to buy the hardware, you're going to end up using the hardware. That's just a fact of life.
The Soviets collapsed for this reason, so it's bipartisan, believe me. But you're concerned about these huge deficits are justified, and that is the reason I advocate less spending and a balanced budget.
Yeah, balanced on the back of working people with no protections, no minimum wage, no Social Security, no unemployment insurance, no anything. All right, just complete victims of the emperors, the inheritance wealthy. Right.
And I think all people should be treated equally. So if they're doing no harm to anybody and they're not taxed.
Right. So all people should be treated equally. So we should treat the guy who works 40 hours a week or 50 or 60 hours a week the very same way we should treat somebody who is born into millions of dollars. Right.
Quite frankly, the average corporation is taxable. You may be talking about foundations and all, but I would argue the case that if somebody does well because they don't pay taxes, fine, lower the taxes on the people who are paying taxes. That's my whole argument, is that we should reduce spending so drastically here that we can get rid of the income tax, and you don't have to worry about who's getting the shaft, who's getting the...
Yeah, why just not get rid of the whole fucking society then, really? Why don't you just get rid of the whole fucking society? Because no one's going to put up with that. The regular workers, this isn't 500 years ago, okay? We don't have just bows and arrows and rocks to throw at each other. We can fight real guerrilla wars, all right? You're not going to get away with this crap. We do not want to live as property of a king. So fuck you. This is going nowhere, Ron.
Bad deal and a good deal in the tax code because it's too complicated to understand. So we want a small government. We want...
Yeah, well, look, again, the only thing you can't... the income tax, the tax that you rag on the most, the statistical fact is, though, with all the loopholes and all the rest of that crap, okay, the top 2% are paying 60% of it. So at least it is hitting the wealthiest people in the fucking world, you dumb ass. It's the only tax that is hitting them, you dumb ass.
A constitutional-sized government, which means we could get rid of the income tax. We've only had the income tax since 1913. And it's only because of the welfare system and the wars that are going on is the reason we need this income tax. So,
yeah, well, look, we know where it came from, all right? It came from needs to fight World War I, and then we can go through World War II, and then we can go through the rebuilding of Europe, and then we go through the rebuilding of the United States. All right, and it went into building a very good and functional nation. It went into building Hoover Dams and the rest of that crap. It went into a lot of good expenditures. All right, you dumb ass. We're civilized. We have a society now. We're not sitting there. We're not using horse and buggies. We're all sitting in our own fucking little worlds, okay? We're living in a fucking modern society where people have dependencies on electricity and all kinds of other services that didn't fucking exist 300 years ago, you dumb ass.
So you point out an inequity, and I think that's right, but I would equalize things by making sure that nobody has to pay taxes.
For Congressman Ron.
Yeah, and nobody, we don't have a society. We just have a bunch of individuals and private property, and that goes nowhere. That only goes to consolidation and ownership by the very, very few. Then we all become fucking renters in their world. Fuck you.
I think you're talking about what happens when government gets to control over our lives and over the economy, that the special interests move in. Even though some programs are designed to help poor people, say to provide houses for poor people, lo and behold, the builders and the
yeah, and some things like minimum wages are designed to prevent the exploitation that would be inevitable because population isn't controlled by government, is it, Mr. Paul? No, it isn't. So if you're not going to control population, then you're going to have surpluses, and then surpluses can be exploited. And if you don't provide any kind of mechanism to prevent that exploitation, then you are basically cannibalizing your own species, you dumb shit.
Contractors and the real estate people and everybody else seem to benefit from this, and then the poor people end up losing their mortgages. So no, once the government is involved in the redistribution of wealth, there will always be special interests who will...
Yeah, right, the government gets involved in the redistribution of wealth. No, in the provision of something that might be, what's the word? Oh, fairness, that's right. In the creation of a fair field, in the creation of rules and mechanisms that make it possible to have an honest game. But instead we have a dishonest game because jackasses like you keep throwing the wrench into the mechanism, keep trying to find some way to stop that fairness machine from doing anything. You're the corruption in the mechanism. You're the fucking flaw in the process.
Work to get an advantage. That is the reason you want minimal government. The role of government ought to be to provide a sound currency, to provide freedom in the marketplace, to make sure people follow through on their contracts, nobody can commit fraud, and nobody can commit violence. And
right, but you can abuse and extort and take advantage all you want. And once you have power, once you have money, you can use that money to make it almost virtually impossible for anybody ever to compete with you or to challenge your ownership.
You will solve that problem of people horning in. But quite frankly, I think the person who does the most stealing is the government itself, because the governments have no right to do anything that you or I can't do. If we can't steal...
Yeah, right, exactly. So we don't no hoover dams, no flying to the moon, no doing anything as a society. Just let the rich people tell us what we should do. They should define what the world should look like. They can finance the arts and the rest of the stuff in their little private palaces. We can all be servants to the fucking rich. Fuck you.
From our neighbor, the government has no right to come in and take from us through a tax code, take money from productive citizens and give it to non-productive citizens.
Yeah, and what's the definition of a productive citizen? Okay, are the wealthy who inherit money productive citizens? I mean, yes or no, you dumb ass. Explain to me how they're productive. What fucking work have they done? What contribution have they made? What have they done to earn their control?
And that's more or less exactly what the bailout is doing today. There's still some productivity going on in this country. But so if we appropriate $800 billion like the House did yesterday, if that has to come out of the pockets of the few people left that are still producing.
Yeah, right. No, it's deficit spending, right? It doesn't come out of anybody's pockets. So what the fuck are you talking about? Not unless they raise the taxes back to where they should be again. So what? You just contradicted yourself. They're not gonna tax that money out of anybody. They're gonna borrow that money.
Have nothing, they produce nothing, they can't create jobs. All they can do is shuffle the cards, and that's what invites these people to come in and fight for a special benefit.
They can't create jobs? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, they do create jobs. There's lots of people making a good living working for government, and some of that work is good, honest, productive work, and some of it isn't. I would agree that we should get rid of all the dishonesty. We should get rid of certainly the government unions. They shouldn't extort us. They shouldn't be our tyrants. They should be our fucking servants. We should certainly, lower congressional pay and the rest of it. Certainly, yeah. Nobody in government, nobody working for government, no contractor for government should ever excrete any money for private planes and jets and all this other crap. If you're getting any government money, then you have to be working for less, not more.
And a continuation of the campaign is called Campaign for Liberty. And somebody said, well, when did that start? And I said, about 30 years ago, because that's essentially what I've been doing since I first ran for Congress in the city.
Right, well, Campaign for Liberty. I mean, it's nice words, but just be articulate. Explain exactly what that means. It means the liberty of the wealthy to consolidate their wealth even more, to own every single American and have them working for $2 or $1 a day like the rest of the world that they own.
Campaigning for liberty, because that is the driving motive I have, is to explain and defend the position that individual liberty is the key to a prosperous nation.
Yeah, well then why do you oppose people, if they're homosexuals, having a civil contract that allows them to have the same privilege as married couples? Why did you try to pass a constitutional amendment telling everybody else they have to believe a zygote is a human being? Fuck you, you hypocritical piece of shit.
And Campaign for Liberty is a national organization now, and it does a lot of work on campuses, and the whole purpose is to present to the people.
Yeah, to brainwash the gullible into believing you give a fuck about the average working human being. You only give a damn about people who have consolidated and have ownership of and control of property, and that's it.